Okay. Good morning, everyone, on Zoom and here in person. Um, my name's Chris. Pretty sure everyone already knew that, though. And before I start my talk this morning, I wanted to acknowledge and express my gratitude to Jane and Peter. They're my teachers, if you didn't already know, which you probably did. Hopefully, you know by now. And also, by the way, Greg Fain, he was my teacher for a number of years, and it's actually his practice to start his talks by acknowledging and thanking his teacher. And he said it would be okay if I took up that practice too. So the title that I gave my talk is "Blood, Spit, and Tears." It's about sewing. I thought it was kind of clever. Sorry, but it's definitely the coolest part of my talk. So everything else is gonna be less clever. And obviously, normal phrase is blood, sweat, and tears, but a lot more spit than sweat goes into sewing. But there's some sweat too, mainly from my hands. So the reason why I am talking about this is because I've been doing a lot of sewing, and it's been reminding me of some things, and I wanted to share some of that with you. But first, I wanted to read a couple things. I wanted to share, first of all, one of the documents which I have been finding helpful is the study of the okesa, which was written and put together by Tomoe Katagiri. She was doing yohoi sewing at Minnesota Zen Center. So she wrote a little intro to where the okesa. Well, so this is called the Raksu. Actually, well, everyone knows Raksu, right? Abbreviated robe, but it is Buddha's robe. It's a Buddha robe. It just has 5 panels and it's much smaller. I'm sewing one that like Peter has, but black. It's gonna wrap around like the traditional Buddhist monk looks. And so where that came from was, and now I'm going to read from Tomoe Katagiri's intro. About 2,500 years ago, Shakyamuni Buddha was at Rajagra, a favorite resort of his and the capital of the kingdom of Magadha. At that time, Buddha's disciples wore the same clothes as students of other teachers, so it was very difficult to distinguish between disciples of Buddha and other adherents. Many of them wrapped their bodies with large or small squares of fabric, some white, some made of bright colors, and some with decorations. One day, Bimbisara, the king of Magadha, noticed a man who looked like a Buddhist monk standing by the road in the distance. The king was getting off his elephant to bow to the Buddhist monk when he noticed that the man was not a Buddhist monk, but a Brahmin. So he asked Shakyamuni Buddha to make clothes for his disciples that were symbolic of their practice. One day, when Shakyamuni Buddha was on his way from Rajagra to the south to teach with his disciple Ananda, he stopped to take a look at a rice field and noticed its footpaths were formed in a marvelous order and neatness. The rice plants were growing together peacefully with other creatures without any discrimination. Shakyamuni Buddha pointed to the rice field and asked Ananda if he could create a Buddhist robe for the disciples of Buddha that had the same pattern as those rice fields. Ananda said that he could and went back to Rajagra for the purpose of making this robe. When Shakyamuni Buddha came back to Rajagra, many of his disciples were already practicing with the robe that took its pattern from the rice fields. This robe was made of long and short pieces of discarded fabric, dyed and sewn together. Shakyamuni Buddha respected the wisdom and intelligence that was revealed in the robe Ananda created. So, just a little quick intro. Thanks for indulging me. And then there's another bit by Dogen, but I wanted to kind of just get to it. I'll read the Dogen quote in a little bit. There's a couple koans that also matter. Maybe more. I don't know. Shouldn't compare. In any case, same koan, same story, but a few different sources. So this one comes from the Shinji Shobogenzo, which was Eihei Dogen's collection that he put together, translated by Nishijima. So case 93. When Master Somitsu was sewing, Master Tozan asked, "What are you doing?" Master Somitsu said, "I am sewing." Master Tozan said. How is your sewing? Master Somitsu said, in sewing, almost every stitch is the same. Master Tozan said, even though we've been traveling together for 20 years, is this all you can say? Doesn't anything else come into it? Master Somitsu said, what do you think, Acharya? Master Tozan said, the whole earth seems to burst into flames. So from the record of Dongshan, very similar. And by the way, the names we were just hearing were the sort of Japanese transliteration of Shenshan and Dongshan. So pretty much story, but this one ends. He says the whole earth is spewing up flames. Anyway, I remember it as the whole earth is bursting into flame, but then I saw like also belching out flames. Anyways, you get the idea. So moving on. A question that comes up fairly frequently, whether from an actual person or in my own head, is why do you sew your robe by hand? It's a fair question. When I first learned about this practice back in 2010, when I asked Jane if I could take Jukai, I just thought, oh, that's cool. He said, you sew your own robe. I was like, oh, right on. I get it. Got to do something. Got to make it yourself. I like it. At least I'm pretty sure that's how it went. That's how I think I remember it. I think I remember getting it intuitively and not really asking much about it, or not asking why. However, I'm sure that I asked myself why many times later when I was hurting my fingers trying to push the needle through 6 or 7 layers of fabric, wondering why am I doing this? Can't I just buy one? Why does it matter? When I get asked this in casual conversation, I try to give a short answer like, it's a symbol of our devotion, or it's a way to explore our intention. On a deep level, the reason I sew my own robe is obvious, but it's very difficult to express. I could come up with numerous reasons, but like Zen and Dharma, these explanations might be very good, but not quite it. But it's still helpful. And all this sewing has given me plenty of time to consider it. And if you didn't already know, August 19th, 2 weeks from today, you'll get a chance to see what I'm talking about. Someone asked me who'd seen the live videos of me sewing them, posting to Facebook, is like, so what's that blanket you're making? And I was like, well, it is kind of like a blanket. It's about blanket size. Anywho. So, yeah. Point is, it's a lot of sewing and it's a lot of learning. Sewing is a lot like zazen. I'm moving my hands and I'm exerting mental effort and I'm chanting Namu Kie Butsu, Namu Kie Ho, Namu Kie So with every stitch, or trying to anyways. But I'm still just observing and being present with what arises. Side note, that's a Greg Fain's zazen instruction. Be present with whatever arises. And while I'm doing this, I'm relearning lessons that I've learned from zazen. When I'm sewing, I get really frustrated when I think I'm putting the needle in the fabric more or less the same way, yet I see the size of the stitches and the distance between varying wildly. But when I pay close attention, I notice that slight differences in my placement of the needle affects the stitches quite a bit. If I take my time and focus, I can see them get more consistent. And the amount of extra care it takes to get more consistent results is not much at all. But there are other factors which affect my stitches too, like how many layers of fabric I'm sewing through. When there are more layers, the thread cinches the fabric fibers less as I'm pulling it taut, so the perceived size will be closer to the actual size. I don't know, but I have a hunch that humidity, how sweaty my hands are, whether or not I applied thread magic to the thread I'm using, etc., all affect the way the stitches turn out as well. Maybe not, and it will just take time to develop into a more consistent sewer. Even if it is true, it'll take time to develop into a more consistent sewer. I just have to keep sewing, and eventually I'm better. But then again, I shouldn't feed attachment to outcomes. If, despite my best effort, a line of stitches is turning out not so good, that's fine. Sometimes it seems like a line of stitches turns out great, even though I wasn't super present while doing them. I shouldn't judge my effort based on the results I get. This not attaching to outcomes also applies when looking to the future. Sometimes I make a stitch which I see as exactly right, and I think, I need to make them all exactly like that one. But I don't, actually. These lessons apply to my life outside of sewing. I'll think, oh, that human encounter or action or response to a situation was exactly right. I just need to do them all like that and things will be okay. Things are always changing. This one is changing moment by moment too. The actions which led to positive results today might lead to not so positive results tomorrow. And a side note, that is a key aspect to practicing with the precepts, how to keep them alive. But anyways, I don't want to get off topic. Another lesson I've been learning again and again is how to let myself off the hook. And its companion, how to stop from putting myself there to begin with. Suzuki Roshi said Zen is making your best effort on each moment forever. Sometimes I feel like shit when I see that my effort is lacking. But it's okay, I hope. It's always a new chance to try. Zen is also making one mistake after another. My effort is not always going to be the best. It's not always going to be good, even. But no matter what it is, meeting it, responding to it, is my practice. Sometimes I will come close to what I'm trying for, and my response is, that was good enough. Other times, the response is, I can do better. Is there any way to know why it's not the same? Why things are never the same? Does it matter? I don't think so. It seems Buddhism doesn't answer many why questions. It might not answer any now that I think about it, but it does try to offer guidance on how. How do I respond? Another Suzuki Roshi quote I like was when he told the woman who would eventually become his wife that Buddhism was all about an appropriate response. Sewing also taught me that I really need to trust myself, that I am trustworthy, actually. It's second guessing my effort that really leads to difficulty. Sewing also taught me that it's precisely when I want to go fast that I should slow down. Something is going on that makes me want to hurry. Stop. Check in. What's going on? All of these lessons, and more probably, come up every time I put needle to fabric, push through, and pull the needle and thread to the other side, even though I might not catch them. If I was to simplify it, I would say that it is enough just to be with the universe and offer myself however I am, whether or not I'm being sincere, whether or not I should go slow, whether or not I'm getting good results, and let sowing and living burn everything up. Merge with the flames bursting forth from the earth, moment after moment, stitch after stitch. So if there are any comments or questions.
I have one for you,
All right,
Chris.
cool, 1 second.
I agree with you that sewing really is a question of testing your intent in becoming a priest, but it's not the only way to test it, but for finding out how you think, finding out what the state of your mind is, you could just stitch one row of stitches with nothing in between, just this one piece of material. Just do the stitch across the one piece and watch and just look at the rhythm of it and the coming out of it, and you could just see your mind at work going through each. So I don't think it makes any difference if it's done well or done not well, because finally when you look at everybody's Roxu, people only see the Roxu itself. They don't really see the stitches until they want to see the stitches. So just making the attempt and learning the various things from it, that's the biggest test of all, and it's a good one to finish. And a lot of people don't finish. I would say not a lot, but we've had people go halfway through it and quit. And it's kind of sad, I think, that somebody gets so fed up with it that they just quit on it. So, uh, anyway, thank you for finishing. And
Do you,
I thought the picture of your okesa looks very nice.
thanks. I'm very close to the end, but not quite there.
Yeah, but it looks very good. So whenever you finish it is good.
Do you ever think so? Like, if someone is trying to be a Zen student, and we say, "All right, if you want to do Jukai and you want to formally commit, you need to sew this thing," and they get halfway through, and the sewing is so frustrating that they quit. Do you think that maybe we put too big of an obstacle in their way by asking them to sew something, or is it really more something else is going on? And if it wasn't the sewing, it would be something else.
I think it's that more than the other because we've had people that, one guy who was doing actually pretty well just quit because he got bored with it or something and just left and didn't want to do anymore. And we've had other people who have had incredible struggles with it. So much so you almost had to hold the hand while they're putting it through the stitching. And they persisted all the way to the end because they wanted to see it. And I think that's part of the way they will lead their life in some way, you know. They'll never ever give up no matter how bad it is. And that's really encouraging to see. So it's not a question of whether you're really good at something or not good at it, because it's just the intent to make it and then seeing it through to the end that makes a difference. And really, some people have almost been in tears the whole time. And we've been in tears the whole time trying to help them because, you know, we think, oh my God, they're gonna give up if we don't do something. And they never do, they stick it out. So if you just finish it, that's the only thing that's really gonna count, because when you put it on, no matter what Buddhist center you're in, everyone will say, oh, look, you have a Roxy. We can, you know, feel good looking at it, and they look at your stitches. Some of them may look wonderful and some may not, but it doesn't make any difference because they look at it with a kind eye. That's been my experience. They always look at everybody's Roxy with kindness,
Yeah.
wanting to share with it. So thank you for finishing, and your talk was very nice. Thank you.
Thank you. Mike?
I really liked your talk. I like your title because I bled a lot trying to sew just a robe suit. I cannot picture myself trying to sew a robe, but it's, to me, even though Sandy Garvin saved me because I destroyed my robe suit so bad, she had to re-sew the whole thing. It was the dedication to the Dharma that I was going through, in the sense that, okay, this is just a symbolic gesture of showing how much I am intent on being part of the Dharma. And yes, I have one of the more unusual Roxus that everybody's ever made. Mine looks like a giant baseball, but Jane told me, she goes, that's you. That's your representation of yourself. And part of it's Sandy's representation of myself. And, you know, but my Roxu taught me perseverance, dedication, and something I have a very hard time with, letting some people help me. And, you know, I bled all over mine. I stabbed my fingers so many times that, you know, it was just a bloody mess. I cussed and swear, screamed and cried. And you know, but it was a test, you know, and I can't imagine what it's like to sew a robe, you know, the dedication you have to put into it. But I feel that no matter what, your robe is your robe, flaws and all, warts and all, you know, and it's a sign of your dedication to the Dharma. And so, you know, I can't wait to see it. And I just wanted to again say thank you for your talk.
Thank you very much. I like your Roxu because for the same reasons you just mentioned. And I haven't bled so much, partially because I'm developing some calluses, which is nice, and that helps. But I have bled into it, and I've gotten lots of spit on my needle as I'm and the thread as well. I don't think I've actually like cried, but I've wanted to. Like I've been in that like, oh, I just, and I'm just like, I really just kind of want one of those like breakdowns, you know, like a really good monsoon storm in the desert. It's just like you feel good after a really good cry, but I'll just have to focus on my breath instead. And just real quick, I wanted to ask Mike. Maybe this is a good rhetorical question. Maybe not. And actually, it kind of speaks to what Jane was saying also, and that is when we're sewing. I mean this. Are we learning perseverance? Are we cultivating perseverance, or are we just finding it?
Maybe a little of all of it.
Yeah, we're finding some and then growing it. Maybe. I don't know. That sounds pretty good.
I'm
Sandy.
real uncoordinated with my hands, so it was a lot of anger because I couldn't get my hands and my eyes to coordinate to sew it and stuff. And it was, it was one of the hardest struggles I've gone through in the Zendo, was dealing with that. But I knew I had to do it because it was mine. It was my representation of my dedication to my practice. And even though it's a tiny little piece of cloth, it was me. And so I just struggled through it because I hate sewing. I stabbed my fingers so many times, I can't see the hole in the needle to put the thread through it. I pull the needle through and the thread doesn't come through with it. It was like, I would look at my stitching and go, it looks like I was drunk, pull it all out, start all over again, pull it all out, start it all over again, cuss and swear, scream and cry, put it down for a while. I went through a nightmare creating this little piece of cloth. And finally, I had to beg help, and Sandy graciously came to my saved me and put it all together for me at the last second. So I'm very indebted to her help with me. But your talk brought back some really unpleasant memories. But
Sorry.
but thank you again.
We had somebody sewing their rocks right up until 1 hour before the ceremony, before it was finished.
One of the people in the sewing session, he finished his like 3 days before his ordination. And you didn't hear this from me, but he might not have done all the stitching on that.
Nobody.
No.
Mike is right. It's a good way to accept help as well.
Yes.
To learn how to accept it, graciously.
Speaking of people who helped Mike, Sandy. Currently, you are muted. It's the Zoom mic this time. There we go.
Okay. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yep. Yes.
Yep. Oh, okay. Good. Okay, great. Thank you for your talk. I really enjoyed it. And to hear what you went through mentally and what you've learned from the experience. Because having worked and helped so many people make their Roxus, I realized that both from making my own plus helping people, I realized that it was really a major learning experience, rather than something you just did or needed to do. Because if it was just that, then we could have gone out and bought them. So not only did I learn a lot of patience, I believe people around me persevered and really, became, how do I say it? I saw people become more one with their practice, more one. The Roxu was a representation of that, of the of the joining of both, of the dedication to practice. And it was really heartening to see, especially, you know, a lot of guys that have never picked up a needle and thread before, able to persevere and get things through with help. And that's, if you're out there, Mike, with help. And I wanted to thank all of you who let me help them, and because I gained a lot out of it. And your talk was excellent. And I do want to say one thing to Mike. I did not take all your stitching out. Some of your stitching remains in the Roxu. What I did is I used your stitching to model my stitch after yours, so it would have more of a continuous look, rather than a look of, you know, little tiny stitches, big stitches, crooked stitches, straight stitches. So whatever way it turns out is fine. It's the meaning behind it and the action behind it. So I'm so glad that you're getting close to the end of sewing your robe and you're not giving up. So keep up the good work, and be happy to see you in person on the 19th and see you all dressed and your head shaven. That
Also, my face.
Oh, okay, that's good.
Yeah,
Aren't there? Yeah.
I'm looking forward
like
to.
a newborn.
Yeah, exactly. That'll be fun. Yeah, so I figured just do the damn thing, shave it all off, because it's, you know, cool or whatever. I don't know. But like in a ceremonious way. I don't know. Mitch.
Yeah, well, thank you.
I had a horrible time sewing my Roxu. Um, and I'm a rather verbal person, and I did a lot of cussing, and Jane didn't do that too well. She set a jar out, and every time I cussed, I had to put a quarter in the jar, and it was quite an experience. I actually give myself credit for sewing 3 Roxus, because I would do a row, I would tear it out, I would redo it, and I'd go on and tear it out. I think I probably put 3 times as many stitches in the Roxu as it finally ended up in my Roxu. So that was probably one of the hardest things I've ever done, was sewing that Roxu. It's quite an effort, for me at least was.
Are you coming on the 19th as well, Mitch?
Oh, you bet.
Okay.
I'll be there.
I know you're up in Washington or Oregon now?
Yeah, Vancouver, Washington. Yeah.
I'm really looking forward to seeing you again, man.
Me too, brother. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And Spencer, you too.
Yeah, Spencer, you need to give a talk about priest stuff. Anywho, Rachel.
I wish I could be there, Chris, but I just can't do that. I wanted to remind you, I know it's a gateless gate, but you might think of yourself as at Heaven's Gate, because I kept thinking of what is it, harder for a rich man to enter the kingdom of heaven than it is for a camel to go through the eye of a needle. So you have that beat.
Well, I'm not rich, although I'm doing better than I was.
You're not supposed to be rich. That's the point.
Yeah, exactly. I'm leaving home, but I'm keeping my apartment. How does that make any sense?
Want to take a cat with you?
A cat?
Yeah, a little yellow
Yeah,
cat
yeah.
outside, about 4 months.
I'll think about that. I might give it the spare bedroom, and then I can engineer. Because, anyways, yeah. Oh, yeah. No, I've had all sorts of thoughts about what it means to be a home leaver while still having a normal job and an apartment and whatnot. But that's a whole other talk. Maybe like a series. I don't know. I'm gonna be just making notes the whole time. Be like, anyways. Sorry to ramble. Anyone else have a? Oh, I see Spencer's hand is raised.
Hey, hello.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Am I unmuted?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, my Roxu experiences have not been great. My first Roxu is not pretty. Um, it's sort of funny. It came together, probably like Mike's and Mitch's, and it's sort of weird the things that have happened to this Roxu. I'll just tell you a few of them. Maybe 15 years ago, I opened the Roxu one day and I noticed it had a giant stain on it inside its case. And I never understood why or how it got this stain. Because it was in the case and I was sitting every week and I opened it up and it had that stain. So that was the first thing. Earlier this year, we moved and I have a small altar and it's a Chinese elementary school desk. So it's very low. And I lost my Roxu for like 4 months and I couldn't find it. We searched everywhere. I thought we threw it out. And it was underneath the bottom of the desk and it was like magnetically attached. It made no sense, but it was pressed up underneath it. And I found it maybe 6 weeks ago when I was moving to clean. And I was like, oh, what's this? So I found my Roxu again. That's this Roxu. My experience trying to make a Roxu and robes now that I'm older was incredibly difficult when I was trying because it just brought all my frailties to the forefront, that my eyesight was going, my fine motor coordination was going. I have slight tremors. It was almost impossible for me to sew, and it was really, disheartening to me. As bad of a sewer as I was 10 times worse in my advanced years here. So, it really is, representative of your life at that time. But, this Roxu, it's been with me a long time. It's got a lot of stories and, Chris, I got to give you credit. I watch you sewing and, we text and talk and, your devotion to putting that together, it's incredible. So I'm really impressed with, your stick-to-itiveness. So thank you.
Thank
So
you.
you're letting others help you too, and that's wonderful. To see it all through with anyone's help is, with anyone at all's help, that's one of the good things in all of this. And I really admire both of you and how you've approached it and stayed with it. So thank you to you both.
I fully intend to finish the Roxy that you started, by the way. Then you'll have like 4 or whatever, but
I could send you the panels. Oh, did I?
no, I already have them.
Because I couldn't. Right, I send you that. I just send you the more fabric.
Oh no,
so.
I'm finishing the Roxy. I'm not going to finish the okesa.
Okay.
No, that's.
What was the stain on it? What was the mark on it?
The stain?
Whatever it was, what is it? Was that
I have no idea. Looks like coffee.
Yeah, it looks like coffee.
Was that a stamp?
The seal?
Because we put a stamp in the center of people's boxes occasionally, a really big one. It looks like it could be a stamp.
Oh no, he's talking about the brown circle.
Well, that's what his other teacher.
Yeah. That's
Oh, wait, what happened to my hand?
That's why it was like unique.
Rachel.
Yes, Chris, that is admirable. You're doing that. You know, you've not done that. I want to say my experience was tempered um, by the teacher because I did have at one point training in stitching. So fancied I was going to be able to do this because I've had to do in that one period in which I was trained to do something that I could handle a rock suit, but I did it, as you know, under Tim Wicks, and I I don't know if he does this with everyone. I don't see how he could, but he became very picky, and yeah, I promise you, I did at least average job. I mean, if not, yeah, reasonable. I'm not saying perfect, but I've seen others, and it was certainly acceptable. But he sent one back and said, "Do that row over." He, um, I mean, I felt as though, unfortunately, I met my soulmate, and we have a standard here. I'm laughing, but I learned a lot about myself and had a good time ultimately. But I really couldn't believe that all right, I was just doing an average job. I thought an average job would be okay, but it's as though he knew you could do better than an average job, so everybody else can do that, not you. So I'm just laughing, but I relish average now, and from now on, I'm never going to have an attitude again about that. But congratulations, that's a big deal. I know the size of what you're doing, and that's admirable.
It's one of the times where I kind of would have appreciated, being of shorter stature because there'd be less cloth and so less lines of sewing to do. But Tim Wicks has been helping me a lot. He and I started working together, God, like now 2 years ago, maybe longer. I mean, I first asked Jane like 2021, I think, maybe about 2 years ago. Anyways, so it's been a while, but mailing back and forth. And at some point, I'm just like, I kept being, because he's very particular. And I'm not sure, maybe it's just because like he had taken on so many people, he'd taken on the helping of so many people, or if maybe, and I was hoping this, I was worried that he would tell me mine weren't good enough and make me do it over. Like, no one has ever told me this, but I've heard of other people being told this, and I'm like, I hope he doesn't think I can do better. I really, really hope that he's just like, this is as good as this guy's gonna get. So, what's the point in having him redo that? At some point, he said something like, "Oh yeah, and by the way, on the back side, you can't have any knots. If I see any, I'm gonna cut them off." I'm like, but no, then it'll come apart. So I sent a message. I was like, please, I'm begging you, please just don't cut off the knots if you see any. I don't think there are any, but if there are, just please leave them, let them be. It's gonna be on the inside. Like, who's gonna care? Anyways, but he's, I think, helped as many Zen students sew as he can at this point, and he's moving on. He's gonna step up a little bit at City Center, and anyways, but it's been great working with him. I owe him a huge debt of gratitude for all his help and patience. Yeah, it's been a thing.
I have a question.
Yeah.
And I don't know how we're doing on time, but I think my Roxu is what, 7 panels?
There should be 5.
And then when you get ordained, don't you do a smaller one? I mean, fewer panels?
Well, the Roxy's will have 5 panels. I'm sewing an okesa that has 7 panels.
That was my next question. I don't know anything about an okesa and how many panels and how they work.
Yeah.
Some have 7 panels, some have 9, and I think when a teacher gets a congratulatory one, it's like 21 or something like that, and they're all pretty small.
I was doing some Google image searches for okesa, and there's a picture of Blanche Hartman, and she's got like a 21 panel rain stitch okesa, and it's marvelous. Like these things can get really cool, and I want to keep sewing. Greg Fain has a practice where he's always sewing something, and I think I'd like to emulate that. I might take a break before I start the next thing, but for one thing, I want to. You remember I told you about the one with the different shades of brown, and you and Peters would be like, I bought some fabric. I don't know how soon I'll start on it, but yeah, I still want to do that. I haven't burned myself out. I actually kind of like it. It's good for my mind somehow. But
Is the black okesa different than the brown okesa? I mean, I know that that's Dharma transmission, but is the panels different?
no, the panels are the same. In fact, at the sewing station, there was a lady who was going to be getting Dharma transmission sometime next year. And so she was sewing a Roxu, which is a 5-panel. She was sewing a 7-panel okesa, which is the normal one. She was sewing a 9-panel okesa, which is, and Dogen talks about it in his little bit on the kesa in Shobogenzo, for like giving nice talks to people or special ceremonies. And of course the zagu, which is the piece of cloth that goes on the floor so that your okesa, your Buddha robe, doesn't touch the floor. Which, thank you again, Peter, by the way. So I didn't have to sew a zagu because Peter is gifting me. I'm getting a hand-me-down. I think it's pretty cool, actually.
It's receiving help.
Yes, exactly. I'm just like, oh, thank God. Yeah, but sewing the panels, receiving the precepts, and then living with all of that. It's never over. And in fact, we're about to renew our Bodhisattva vows momentarily because we're close to the full moon. So we're doing the full moon ceremony. So thank you very much for your kind attention and for the comments and your stories and for questions. And thank you again, Peter and Jane. And if you ever see this, Tim Wicks, thank you very much. I appreciate it. And Mako, and there's an Allison and Kika and a few other people. So I'll probably thank you again at the ceremony. I don't know. Anyways, gotta go now. Have a good day.